Well, this is Baruch Fleischman here. We're back once again at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We're learning about the survival of the Jewish people during the Middle Ages. And it really is important to what's going to happen later on, as you see, as and I've said before. This is an old civil war between two brothers, but it is spread into massive proportions. All of Europe versus the Jewish people. The uncle involved, Yishmael, who's the stepbrother or the half-brother of Isaac, Yitzchak, living either between one or the other, and the persecutions that followed in our exile. So this is the Jews in Italy during the Papacy of Gregory I. We're going to take a look at what the blurb says about it. Here's a little picture. Let me see if I can get this down here so we can see it. This is a little fresco that was drawn or painted or drawn. Pope Gregory I this is a picture of him in his holiness. So we'll go back over here and we'll read a little bit about the Papacy of Gregory I, also known as Gregory the Great. So let me see if I get this lined up good, get it focused. Okay. He says, despite the scant information available on the Jews in Italy in the 6th and 7th centuries. So here we're talking about 590s, 6 centuries, 604, the beginning of the 7th century. So what do we actually have here? So we've moved across from Arabia, moved across the Byzantine Empire. We're going to get more out of that. And now we're in Spain. And then we went to Spain, and now we're going to Italy, see what's going on over there. So despite the scant information available on the Jews in Italy in the 6th and 7th centuries, there are sources that indicate Jewish settlement in a number of important Italian cities. Legal autonomy for the Jews of Italy was recognized by an edict of King Theodoric. This was after 512, the year 512. You're going way, way back here. In contrast to the policy of the Byzantine emperors, who saw Jewish courts merely as institutions of arbitration, the Jews of Genoa were allowed to repair their synagogue, and it was decreed that they were not to be coerced in matters of belief. So let's just take a look over here and see. Here is, if you can see the map, let's see, the book is a little unwieldy because it's so big. So trying to get down on this where we could see it better. Let me move this over here. Maybe that will help. So here is Genoa. Genoa is port city on the Atlantic side of Italy. So he says over here, this is Sardinia. We have some other places, and some places which are very important in the development of Torah. But at any rate, this is where Genoa was. Let's go over here. So he says the Jews of Genoa were allowed to repair their synagogue, and it was decreed that they were not to be coerced in matters of belief. The thing about Italy is that Italy was always divided up into different kinds of kingdoms and different kinds of rulers, and so where the Jews could be comfortable in one place, in another place could be very dangerous for them. So let's go the Jews of Genoa. So that's where they were not coerced in matters of belief. That means, in other words, they weren't forced to become Christians. The heads of the church in Rome had considerable international influence, but it was only during the papacy of Gregory I, between the years 590 and 604, now this is there's a 14-year period, that the church's attitude to the Jews was given official expression. His papal bull, which is called Sicut Judaeus, determined the church's relationship to the Jews throughout the Middle Ages, and this is something that started, and now we're going to see how this develops throughout the Middle Ages. The underlying principle of Gregory's bull was the maintenance of the status quo, and so, for example, the extent of synagogue activities was restricted to what had been permissible before the publication of the bull. So in other words, in whatever place you were, Judaism was always seen as a competitor, like a political competitor to Catholicism. Successive popes in the Middle Ages continued to be guided by this secret judaïsme. However, Gregory's general policy towards the Jews was to refrain from religious compulsion and serious economic persecution. While he permitted Jews to own pagan slaves, he prohibited them from owning pagan slaves who then would convert to Christianity, and totally forbade trading in these slaves. Now understand that the slave trade was a pillar of ancient societies. Pagan slaves who worked on Jewish farms and converted to become colons, or I don't know what colons are, but it's Christians, were obliged to pay a fixed legal rental fee and forbidden to perform any personal service for their Jewish master. Gregory also supported the persecution of the Jews by the Visigoths in Spain. Now here we're talking about Italy. We're not talking about Spain. In Spain, he supported the persecution of the Visigoths. In Italy, seems like he had a more liberal hand. It wasn't called persecution. So he says the largest concentration of Jews in Italy seems to have been in Sicily. Now, Sicily at this time was under Byzantine rule. Rome had the most ancient Jewish community and communal organization in Italy. The communal leadership had its early origins in the office of the archsynagogos, the head of the synagogue, who was assisted by the elders of the community. Now, let me see where I'm at. Let's see. Jews of Rome, like the Greeks, the Franks, the Saxons, the Lombards, and I don't know what this word is, the Frisians, were called Schola Peregrinorum, sect of foreigners, and are mentioned as being present at the coronation of emperors in Rome. Rome became the forum for disputations between Jews and Christians on matters of faith. So it became a place where there were these disputations, which we will discuss later on. So then, and King Charles sent to the king of Babylonia, asking him to send Jews, descendants of the house of David. Now, this is a really important place, and I think this really goes on to the next year. The next year is talking about Charlemagne's empire. Maybe we'll do them both together. Let me see how it's going. But this piece right here goes with the next piece. Let's come over here and see what we can make out of the map. Bring it down as low as I can get it. And we'll look at these different things in history and where they took place. In the year 591, the bishop of the city, that's the city called Terracina, bishop of the city expels the Jews from the synagogue on the grounds that their prayers disturbed those of Christians. Pope Gregory I orders investigation of this allegation. If proved valid, Jews must be given alternative site for their synagogue. Seems reasonable compared to what's going to happen. Number 2. In the year 598, the bishop of the city, what city we're talking about? This is Palermo, Sicily. Palermo. Confiscates synagogue and houses of learning, converting them into churches. Pope Gregory censures the bishop and orders him to pay compensation for buildings and religious artifacts. Number 3. Pope Gregory orders punishment of Christian fanatics who harass Jewish worshippers. This is over in Napoli, in Naples. Number 4. As time progresses, Pope Gregory, during this reign, 590 to 604, censures an apostate for desecrating a synagogue and orders removal of crosses placed there. So there is some freedom for the Jews at this point. Number 5. Although Pope Gregory opposes forced conversion, He orders a group of Jews who wish to convert to be given financial aid and to be baptized immediately before they change their mind. This is Argento, Sicily. So that's a little bit of background over there. This is Baruch Fleischman, the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. And this is Haim Beinart. That's where we've been learning here. And this is the Atlas of Medieval Jewish History.